In this video, I am going to build my portable camera rig with my Sony A7 IV. This camera body is right now mounted into a Magic Rig camera cage that was actually designed for the A7 III, I believe. I modified it a little bit. I filed a little bit on this corner that's right here, and I added a little spacer washer underneath this screw to make this body fit in this camera cage. I like this camera cage because some of the features that it has on it, I could talk about that in a different video, but for right now we're just going to go with what I've got. The first thing I'm going to do is reposition this cold shoe mount. So if I kind of wiggle this, I can loosen up this screw that's on top. Normally I would use my camera tool to do this, but my camera tool right now is supporting this phone that is clamped onto a light. So this little screw comes up through, I think I put it on, we'll put it right here. We put it up through this hole, and it's a captive screw, so when you go up and through, it stays. So now it's through, and then I can take this cold shoe and screw it on here like this. And what I do is position the head of this screw so that it when I tighten this, it self-tightens up and locks in just the right position so that this screw is pointed towards the outside. There we go. And that is what the microphone is going to mount onto. The next thing I'm going to do is move this camera lens from this body over to this one. So I'm going to take off my camera protector, take off this lens, put this cover on here to protect the sensor, set that aside, and install this lens on that body. Okay, so now that's in place. I'm going to use this built-in tool that's on the bottom here. I'm going to install, this is a Manfrotto tripod plate that I have made a custom 3D printed piece on here. I can show you what that does in just a little bit after I get this installed. So we're going to turn this upside down, and we're going to use these two screws. You can see there's a big one and a little one. This is 3/8 and this is 1/4, and those are going to go into these two holes that are right here. So kind of set. And now this has to be loose enough to slide, and we need to slide this so that this front of the plate lines up with the back of this rubber ring, and I'll show you why that is in a minute or two. So we tighten this down. We use the little tightening tool to lock this in place. The next thing we're going to do is install the PD Movie motor. So we have this clamp, we've got that rod, and we've got the motor which goes on the rod. I've also got the little controller that clamps onto the rod also. So we're going to mount this thing. I'm going to loosen this up, and this goes right in this cold shoe mount like that. And need to put this tube in place, and we need this tube to be parallel with the lens. Okay. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'm going to clamp that down. The next thing I'm going to do is put on this motor. So this is going to go on the end like that. And for right now, I'm going to leave this a little bit loose so it's not touching anything. And then we take this rubber ring, this gear piece, and this comes apart, and it wraps around the focusing dial, or the focus ring on the lens. So this goes on here like this. And I'm going to position this so that when it's even with the front side of this ring, the rubber grippy piece, and so that when this gear tooth swings down, it'll interface with these gears at the top side, and then when you rotate it, it'll go like this. So I'm going to put this on like this. I'm going to stretch this nice and tight. I may not be able to do this on the camera. It's easier to do if it's in your lap. Stretch this and push it in place like that. And then I line up this ring, this gear ring, with the front edge of the lens ring. And now you can see why you have to have this plate back. It's so that it doesn't interfere with this ring when it turns. This little bump that's right here would hit this plate if it was too far forward. So now I can loosen up this motor and push it down into place against the gear part like that. Now when it turns freely, and it doesn't run into the ends of the hard stops on either end of the rubber piece. Okay, now I'm gonna install the handle on the side. So this is a NATO rail handle, so it'll clip onto the NATO rail on the side of the frame if it's loose. So I've got to have to loosen it up. And I position this handle so that it's right, that the base of it is right up at the top of the NATO rail on the frame. Tighten that down. Okay, now this rig is real easy to handle with the left handle and then grabbing it right here with your right hand. The controller now, there are a number of different options that you can use for this wheel. I've experimented with different positions of this controller wheel because this can come off of here. You can unscrew this off of this bracket and screw it into any 1/4-20 hole on the rig. I'll show you my preferred position first, and then I'll show you a few alternate ones. So I like it attached here, and then I'll take this and put it on the rail like that, and then I swing this down so that it's just in front of the handle, right like that. And now I can hold this and I can operate this with my thumb like this. It's also possible to take this and tilt it up like this and then move the controller. This unscrews. Tighten this down a little bit more. This will unscrew off of here like that. You can move it onto here like this. And now, if you put it in the right spot like that, now you could hold this and you could run it like this, which is real nice. And then another way I've used it, just take this and just get it out of the way like that. And then I'm going to move the wheel and screw it into the end of this handle. And you can use it like this, back and forth like that. So there are lots and lots of different possibilities. It just depends on your own ergonomic preferences. Like I said, I tend to prefer it mounted in this spot, like this, with this tilted down, right like that. Clamp that on. There's my power. The next thing we can do is install stereo microphone. And the way that you do that is you start by loosening up that mount. I'm going to go back to using my little tightening tool. Set that down. And we take the microphone, which has a cold shoe mount on it. I'm going to slide it in here like that, and then tighten down. Turn this so you can see. Slide it in and then tighten down that screw, and then use my little tightening tool, and that tightens that in place and holds it nice and firm. And then I can take this and screw it down if I wanted to. It doesn't really do much of anything at that point. Okay, and then the little magnetic tool can go back in the bottom, right in there. Okay, and then this little camera, or this little cover right here is where the microphone input comes. So I take this cord, wrap it around, plug it in right like that. So there's the input for the microphone. And now the rig is pretty much built at this point. I'll show you what it looks like when you go to use it. So I would take this ring, there's my lens hood, and let me show you what the thing on the bottom was. So this piece that I put on here has a nut embedded in it, and this piece screws in here like this, and it becomes a little monopod, so that you can set this on a table or some surface, and now I can film fairly steadily using that little foot as the balance point. And if I want to, this is just a little bit loose, so it will slide back and forth on here, so that I can put it exactly where I want it to be. So if I'm shooting up, I can tilt the camera back and I can put that balance point right under the balance point of the camera. Or if I'm shooting level, slide it forward, and it's almost right under the center of gravity with this particular lens on it. Now if I put on a longer lens, it's going to be a little bit more front heavy, but that's just how it goes. Usually when I'm walking around, I take this off and I store it right in this hole right here on the handle, right like this. And that actually makes this handle a little bit more comfortable to handhold, because the weight of the rig on the left-hand side rests on this nice rounded surface on this finger. Otherwise, the weight of this handle, when your hands get sweaty and slippery, the weight of the handle rests on this kind of sharp edge right here, right on the top of your index finger, right under here. I can fix that. I'll probably end up 3D printing a little piece that that pops into this clamp hole. That will be a nice little rest that that cushions your finger. But for now, this little piece works fine when you're hand holding it. Now, when this piece is on the bottom and the weight of the camera is down on whatever it's resting on, then that's not an issue. To show you the operation of this motor, you need to take your motor battery and you slide it in here, and you push it down all the way to put it in place. This is one of the things that I don't like about this system. It's one of the only things I don't like about it, is that there's no on-off switch for this, and to depower the motor, you have to unplug the battery and kind of sort of just leave it sitting here. And when you're carrying this rig around, if you would lose this battery, it could come right out. So usually when I'm carrying it around in between shooting, I'll just take this out and put it in my pocket. It's kind of an annoying feature. I mean, they should just have an on-off switch. But anyway, so you push this in and you click it down into place, and when you do that, that light on the front comes on, and then you hold down the center of this dial, and when you do that, that light comes on. Now you saw that blinking, and then when it stopped blinking, this has paired, the controller has paired with the motor with Bluetooth. And now, right now, when I turn this, it doesn't do anything. But you need to hold down this button, and that makes the motor go through a calibration routine, and it will move the motor to the end stops of your lens mount. And then once it does that, it will be set. I'm going to hold down that button, and hopefully it will recalibrate. Okay, drove to the end stop. I let go, it'll drive to the other end stop, and now it's calibrated. There. So now it's moving to where the controller is. So if I go all the way to one side of the controller, it moves the lens to one side, and then when I go the other direction all the way, it'll go to the other one. So now I'm ready to shoot with this, which I think is just super slick. One of the things I hated about my videos before I had this nice smooth zoom was I had to reach around and try to zoom this thing manually, and I just couldn't get a smooth zoom. And I one of the things I like in my videos is the zooming. So this for me, this was a critical feature that was worth the money of investing in the motor. I do use a camera strap. So I take a camera strap and I screw the camera strap in right here on this hole for walking around. There we go. And when everything is powered off, so I'm going to turn this off. To turn off the controller, you hold this down till the light goes out. I didn't hold it long enough. There, it's out. Okay, and then you unplug the motor and put it in your pocket. Take your zoom and put it all the way in and turn the lock on. And then you got to make sure you turn off the power on the microphone. And now I can sling this over my back, and I'll show you what that looks like when I'm carrying it. So here's what it looks like when this is on the camera strap and it's slung, and I kind of let it rest like that on my back butt cheek. I flip my screen around so that the screen itself is protected. So that sits right like that. And then you can adjust the height at which it hangs with this particular kind of camera strap. You flip that little thing out, and then you can pull it up and tighten it down, and then it'll sit wherever you want it to sit on your hip. I like it to sit at just the right height so that when I walk around, I can kind of have my arm down and I just kind of grab this little clamp knob that sticks out just to keep it from swinging around. So I kind of walk like this, and then when you want to shoot, you can grab it. You turn on the microphone, you turn on the camera, and then you can shoot really quickly with no zoom. And then if you want to do zoom shots, then you've got to put the battery in and then calibrate the motor, and then you can do the zooms. But if you see something just walking around that you want to shoot really quick, then you don't need to do that. You can just turn on the microphone and turn on the camera and shoot like that. So that is my portable camera rig. And hopefully that comes in handy for some people. I'll probably try to put links in all the different pieces down in the video description if you want to use the exact same ones. You may or may not want to. It's easily adaptable to other combinations of pieces parts. But for me, the critical pieces are the zoom motor, and for me, I like to record audio and stereo. I really hate mono audio. So this was an important aspect for me also. But that's it.